Like the first day of classes, I had to take a test, and I take it in a different room because I have time and a half because I'm dyslexic. And they sent me a number that was like, okay, meet in 3:15. They actually had sent 1:35, but they meant 3:15. I ended up going to the right classroom even though they sent me the wrong one. I remember calling Mom. I was like, Mom, you won't believe what just happened. Like, dyslexic kid for the win. Being dyslexic, I think, is different for everyone. For me in particular, I think it's just everything is a little bit more jumbled together. I've seen like some things that is like, oh, everything, the letters are always moving. And like that's kind of the result of it, but when I look at a book, it doesn't look like everything's moving. It looks pretty static to me, but I think that's a good way of thinking about it if you don't know what it's like. Some common misconceptions that just aren't true are is that like people with dyslexia can't read at all.
Dog.
It's definitely harder and it's definitely a different way of reading, but you still can. When I was little, I just couldn't tell the difference between letters. One thing that I still do today is like bed, B-E-D, it makes a bed. And that was like my way of remembering it because B's and D's look the same to me. I think when most people read, they read like the letters individually and then they put it together and like, oh, that says this. I think I almost look at the word as a whole and I try to identify a word that I know from that. It's almost like I think reading like hieroglyphics. I'm in this class that's all about causal inference, but I don't read the word causal very often, so every time I read it as casual. And it's never casual. In algebra, I'd always drop the x, and so I'd be like, oh, -3 = 2. Like, that doesn't make any sense. The combination of letters and numbers at that point just really messed with my brain. But I had, a teacher freshman, sophomore year who would just kind of just yell at me like, Margaret, that's stupid, don't do that. And I'd be like, okay, and I'd do it better the next time. I'm taking biology right now, and that's a struggle because there's like an entire line of just letters, and you have to like find the codons, and that's like very tough for me. There was like one Punnett square that had just lowercase b's and lowercase d's, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. Punnett squares, the worst. But again, like I had really good support that was like, okay, well, what if we do the problem with different letters and then we'll translate it back? So one of the girls on my basketball team like helped me do through that whole problem, and then we like went back and like we fixed the letters so we could put the right answer in. The basketball team and all my friends have been amazing. Like in high school, I'd forget things all the time, and I think that's part of like dyslexia and just part of my personality as well. Fortunately, I have really great teammates that are always looking out for me. And whether it's sending a text like, Margaret, you have to turn in your bio piece at, like in all caps, like the 20 minutes before it's due. They'll like read over my code and be like, hey, you just spelled these 3 words wrong. Their acceptance of like, this slight difference has made this slight difference, negligible, if you will. The best thing that I've learned from having dyslexia is just how important other people are. The first week or two at MIT, I had to find note takers for my classes. So there was like a few introductions where I'd like see someone who took really beautiful notes, and I'd be like, hi, I'm Margaret Sullivan, I'm dyslexic. So they were definitely uncomfortable. Other than that, we do pretty well. I don't think, dyslexia affects me socially, right? It's not like you're reading into stuff. I think when you tell people that you are dyslexic, it helps put your, what you do and your actions in context. There was one, like, physics test this year that I got all the partial credit and, like, I did everything right except I, like, messed up the last thing and I flipped a negative sign and I lost, like, every single point on that test. And, like, initially I was, like, really upset about it. But at some point I looked back and I was like, that's pretty hilarious, though. I make a lot of jokes about it. I think almost too much. There's going to be times where you just have to laugh at yourself because you did this thing that you knew 100% what you were supposed to do and you still messed it up. I'll do something silly and I'll go to the wrong classroom and I'll flip numbers and I'm like, classic Margaret, like dyslexic. Now I'm at a point where like a lot of my friends will make jokes about it, and not in a mean way at all. It's always just a way of being like, oh yeah, Margaret, you did do that. But it's not because you're dumb, it's because of this, right? If we're going to like a classroom and I'll be like, oh, what building are we in? And they'll be like 72112. And they're like, you want me to write that one down for you? And I'm like, yeah. It's mostly just actually them being helpful, but they have to do it in a funny way because I think, if you just always were like, oh, I'll write that down for you because you're dyslexic, like that would be really not fun and exhausting all the time. I think just in life in general, if you can like laugh at yourself and laugh at other things in a supportive and positive way, it can make any situation better, no matter how bad the situation is. People would be like, Alright, like, you should be better at reading, right? And I'd be like, I'm trying. It's cool would be dyslexic. All the cool kids are.